A potato chip cracks at exactly 1.5 decibels. Lay's spends billions making sure every chip sounds the same. Pringles aren't even potato chips, legally. Here's why every chip you've ever eaten has a completely different texture, and why that crunch is not an accident. The classic crisp. Standard potato chips. Lay's. The chip that started everything. In 1853, a chef named George Crumb sliced potatoes paper thin, fried them until they were brittle, and sent them to a customer who kept complaining about thick French fries. It was meant as a joke. The customer loved them. Saratoga chips became a restaurant specialty, then a national obsession. Today, a chip like Lay's is made on a continuous line. Potatoes are sliced to a uniform 1.2 millimeters, washed to remove surface starch, and sent through a fryer at 350 degrees for roughly 3 minutes. You hear the crunch, your brain says, "This is fresh," and you reach for another one.
The extruded melt, Pringles. From the farm, we fly to a physics laboratory. Pringles are where the potato becomes a literal math equation. The chip traces back to the late 1950s, when Procter & Gamble wanted to solve a massive consumer complaint: broken chips and stale airbags. Chemist Frederick Bauer rewrote the rules of snack food geometry. He invented the hyperbolic paraboloid shape, a precise mathematical curve that ensures no two chips can put crushing pressure on one another inside the tube. Pringles are not actually sliced potatoes. They are made from a wet slurry of dehydrated potato flakes, corn, rice, and wheat flour. This mixture is pressed flat into an ultra-thin sheet and stamped out with a cookie cutter mold. The cutouts are molded onto a curved conveyor belt and flash fried for a mere 4 seconds. Because the structure relies on compressed starches rather than natural potato cell walls, the chip offers zero structural resistance. It shatters into a fine, powdery dissolve the exact millisecond it contacts your saliva. The aerated puff, Cheetos, cheese puffs. The cheese puff went from a livestock feed byproduct to the most addictive texture in the snack aisle. In the 1930s, an animal feed company in Wisconsin used a specialized extruder machine to crush whole grains for cattle food. To clean the machine and prevent clogging, workers regularly ran wet cornmeal through the hot flues. They noticed that when the moist cornmeal hit the high-pressure heat inside the barrel, it expanded and shot out like fluffy popcorn strings. A worker named Edward Wilson took some home, fried them, added seasoning, and realized he had stumbled onto culinary gold. An aerated puff is essentially a starch foam.
60 to 70% of its volume is air. When you bite into it, there's almost no resistance. That's why you can eat an entire bag of Cheetos faster than a bag of Lay's. The nixtamalized snap. Tortilla chips, Doritos. Tortilla chips are not potato chips. They're not even made from the same plant. They start with corn, specifically nixtamalized corn. Corn that's been soaked in an alkaline solution, usually lime water, which breaks down the cell walls and releases bound niacin. This process is thousands of years old, invented in Mesoamerica long before frying existed. The resulting dough is pressed, cut into triangles, and fried. The texture is fundamentally different from a potato chip. A tortilla chip doesn't snap or shatter. It grinds. The nixtamalization process creates a denser, harder matrix that resists the jaw instead of yielding to it. Doritos are tortilla chips. The #1 selling chip brand in America is not a potato chip. It's a nixtamalized corn chip with seasoning glued on. The kettle-cooked crunch. Kettle chips, Cape Cod. Kettle chips are fried in batches, not on a conveyor. The oil starts lower, around 325 degrees, and the chips sit in it for 8 to 12 minutes, 3 times longer than a flat chip. This is where the texture comes from. Because the oil temperature fluctuates in a batch process, each chip cooks slightly differently. Starch on the surface caramelizes unevenly, creating dark spots, trapped air bubbles, and a folded, irregular shape. The glassy bubble. Prawn crackers, tapioca crackers. Most people in the West have never eaten a prawn cracker. In Southeast Asia, they're everywhere. Served before the meal at restaurants, sold in bags at every market, made fresh in home kitchens. and their texture is unlike anything else on this list. Prawn crackers start as a dense paste of tapioca starch and ground prawns, steamed into logs, sliced into thin discs, and dried for days until they're hard as ceramic. When you drop one into hot oil, it blooms. The moisture trapped inside the starch expands violently, and the cracker puffs to roughly 3 times its original size in under 3 seconds. In Indonesia, this family of crackers is called krupuk. There are dozens of varieties: prawn, fish, garlic, cassava, even melinjo nut. It's possibly the oldest chip technology on Earth.
The ridged crunch, wavy chips, ruffles. Ridged chips exist for one reason: dip. Flat chips shatter the moment they hit anything thicker than water. The ridged chip solves this with corrugation, the same principle behind corrugated cardboard and airplane wings. The wavy structure distributes force across multiple points, making the chip significantly harder to break. The ridges also increase the chip's surface area by roughly 40% compared to a flat cut of the same size. More surface area means more oil adheres during frying, which means more salt sticks after. The ridged chip doesn't just survive dip, it delivers more flavor per bite than a flat chip ever could. Ridged chips appeared commercially in the 1950s, when snack companies realized that dips were becoming a separate grocery category. Before that, chips were eaten plain. The ridge was a structural response to a new way of eating.
The laminated lattice, waffle/grid chip. A waffle chip, or grid chip, is a lattice, a flat sheet of potato or starch with a repeating pattern of square holes cut through it, then fried until rigid. The lattice structure does 2 things no other chip texture can. First, it distributes force in 2 directions simultaneously, horizontal and vertical, making it the strongest chip shape per unit of material. Second, the holes create crisp edges on both sides of every opening. If you want to understand more foods like this, subscribe. We're explaining them all. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.